My name is Maggie Mesa. I am an artist, a yoga instructor, and a publicity consultant. Today I am putting on my yoga teacher hat and bringing you a sequence designed for anyone that is hiking or running a lot of distance. I did this after my last hike and I really intuitively wanted to focus on hip openers, IT band stretches, and lower back releases. So it's not going to have any of the intense vinyasa sequences in it. It's really meant as a flow to do when you've come home from your adventures out in the wilderness. So since that's really one of my favorite parts of my life, and I am hoping to be able to keep training for whirl, taking care of yourself the rest of the time and stretching out after those long hikes with a ton of elevation is super important. So thank you for joining me here, and let's get started in an upright and seated position, head up towards the ceiling. I'm going to take us through just a few rounds of breath to help relax and calm down and center, and then we'll go into the flow from there. So allow your knees to fall open towards the mat. You can take your thumbs up in your lap, or you can ground your hands down into the tops of your knees if you're looking for a little bit more of a connection in. Beginning to slow your breath and using all four corners of your lungs to inhale, pushing the exhales through your diaphragm, finding length through your spine, and dialing down your thoughts. Taking a few rounds deeply on your own, connecting the length of the inhales to the length of the exhales. Noticing how your body slows in its perception of time, as well as your mind finds a little bit of stillness. Two more breaths here. And let's go ahead and push directly into a down dog. I'm assuming that anyone that's doing this has already been walking or running a little bit, so I'm less worried about creating spine mobility, and I more want to start pressing into the backs of those legs. So bring your feet out hips width distance apart and take your arms about shoulder width distance apart, bringing your hips all the way up towards the ceiling and creating an upside down triangle position here. Bending both knees one at a time if you want, or leaving a little bit of a micro bend in there at any point if the sensation through the back legs is too much, especially after any elevation up or down. But then take both of the feet together so toes touch, inhaling the right leg up and back, and then opening up that knee so that the hips are stacked, knee is up towards the ceiling. Try to keep the shoulders squared towards the front of the mat. And then make big circles with your knee up and all the way around on the ceiling. If you've been doing any running or hiking, the hamstrings and hips are going to get super tight. So I am just drilling into those, taking your right foot all the way up, bringing it towards the top of your mat, and immediately going into a pigeon position, which brings the shin parallel towards the front. Left leg stays long, and you can start to release down onto your mat here. Forearms are an option if you want more sensation than just being up here on your hands, or you can come down into your chest. This isn't always the opener pose here, but if you're starting to try to work into hip openers, especially after having done the opposite of that, then getting into a pigeon right away can be effective. Trying to keep your breath long and even on the inhales and the exhales. Finding length and pulling your chest up and through. And on the exhales, you can dip further down. Feeling that release through the right side of the back of your leg. And then when you're ready, pushing back up onto your palms and bringing that right leg up and back, finding a little bit of movement there until the right leg comes down to meet the left. Inhale the left leg up and open that knee up towards the top of the ceiling, making big circles towards the top in a counterclockwise and then a clockwise direction. Stacking that hip all the way over the right leg, but trying to keep your shoulders square in the meantime until you step the left leg forward. Shin comes up straight, parallel towards the top of the mat. Right leg goes long, creating as much space in between the hips as you can. And then coming down onto your forearms and bringing yourself down onto your chest if you'd like here. Staying for a long hold, at least 5 breaths, ideally 10, maybe 20. Hip openers are where we store a lot of emotional energy, and that gets creates a lot of emotional release when you start to activate them. So it's not uncommon for people to laugh or cry during these types of sequences. I have really tight hips, and especially with the amount of, start to push back up onto your hands, curl your right toes under, and then bring that left leg up and just shake it out up there. And then walk both of your feet up slowly towards the top of your mat, bringing them hips width distance apart, and bow down into a forward fold. Getting into dead man's position, nod your head yes, shake your head no. But releasing hips is going to be really important to create a movement system between the tightening of athletic activities like hiking and the necessary lengthening that the body needs to do after so much repetitive constriction. From forward fold, go ahead and bring both of your toes together, drop your hands, clasping them behind your back, and then rolling up vertebrae by vertebrae until you're all the way into a standing position. And then inhale your arms up towards the ceiling. Right away, taking your right hand, grabbing your left wrist, dipping over towards the right side, and stepping the left leg back behind the right, and then leaning over towards the right, just to get into that IT band as much as possible. Inhaling back up towards center, coming back over to the other side. So you're going to want to have your weight on the left, but then step your right leg back, take your left take your left fingers, grab your right wrist, and then lean over towards the left, lengthening through the right side and feeling that IT band release there again. Then inhaling back up towards center. If you're at the top of your mat here, you can take a step to your left, or the traditional Ashtanga way is to take a step towards your right. I don't really care what you do. I'm gonna do to the left just because I'm trying to stay in screen here. But go ahead and point your feet towards the back of the mat to start. You want your left foot all the way towards the back of your mat. Your right foot comes at a 40-degree angle. You want about 2.5 feet width distance in between. We're going into a twisted triangle, which is a great pose for our IT band, but it is uncomfortable. So from a squared position of your hips towards the back of the mat, take your right hand and place it all the way down next to the left foot, and go ahead and twist up, trying to keep your spine long but still looking up towards the left. And yep, I am definitely feeling that, which is good. It means that the sequence is working. Try to stay here for a few more breaths, and then inhale, coming all the way up. Rotate your toes from the back of the mat towards the front, towards the long part of the mat, and then bring them all the way out front. Now the right foot is going to be placed all the way towards the front. The left foot is at about 40 degrees. Take the left hand and place it down by the right. Right hand comes up, trying to keep your spine long, hips rotating, looking all the way up towards that right hand as it spins up. Trying to stay here for a little bit longer than is comfortable, and then inhaling all the way back up towards the front of the mat. We're going to take one forward fold here to get into the hips, do one more IT band exercise, and then we'll go down into some floor work. From length of your mat, heels out wide, toes point a little bit in. Inhale your arms wide, and then exhale, start to tip forward until your hands are at the same distance as your toes. Inhale into a straight spine, and then exhale, dip forward, keeping your fingertips in line with your toes, but trying to find as much release here as possible as you hit into the back of the legs again, plus some glutes in this long stretch forward. Spending hopefully about 4 or 5 breaths here. When you're done on your inhale, lengthen your spine again. Exhale here, and then inhale. Arms come up long, exhaling them back towards your hips. Inhale, step forward towards the front of your mat. And then exhale, take your right foot and place it over the left at the top of the thigh. I'll turn so I'm facing you again. You're going to want to create a number 4 position here with the right foot, and then start to slowly come down so that you're sitting into that in a balance. It's great to have your hands at heart center here. And really start to feel that release coming through that right side. That's where the hip opener portion of the IT band is going to start to possibly let go a little bit, which will create some lengthening and
release of symptoms, ideally. Once you've held that for about 4 breaths or so, just go ahead and switch out. Right foot comes down, left foot comes up, placing that over the thigh and then sitting down into that right side, feeling that release through the left. Again, ideally, I think it's straighter back is better here. But either way, just making sure that you're trying to target and activate that left side there. And then inhaling back up towards a standing position. From standing, hands come up towards the ceiling. Exhale, a little bit of a back bend back. Inhale, arms up, reach up, and then exhale, swan dive all the way back down towards your mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And let's walk or hop or step or however we need to get towards the front of our mat. And we're just going to come towards a seated position and do some floor work now. The first one that I want to get to is just a forward fold. So let's inhale to a straight back and then exhale, start to dip forward. Grabbing your hands behind your heels, not behind your heels. Clasping your hands behind your feet or grabbing onto the side if that's easier. But just coming into a forward fold here, and again starting to target those hips and leg releases. On your inhales, find a little bit more length. Try to push through your chest. On your exhales, dip forward. And then inhaling all the way back up towards a seated position. Let's isolate that by taking the right leg into a 90-degree angle and falling forward over the left. Coming back up, let's switch out and go into the right side. And then coming all the way up into a seated position once again. But let's just slowly come down onto our backs and then pop up into a shoulder stand. Especially with all the grounding, foot intensive motions you've been experiencing today. If you're watching this video, probably getting a little bit of reverse vertical gravity in always feels really good. And go ahead and play around here if that's fun for you, to really continue those hip openers and just have a little bit of fun and play, because that's always a good time. And then you can roll down from here. Make sure you're supporting your back while you're doing that, but roll down from here vertebrae by vertebrae. And then coming to flat back position, take your left leg out long, take your right leg in towards your armpit, and then use that to draw circles in a counterclockwise direction. That was clockwise, and now I'm going counterclockwise, but it doesn't really matter. And one more round of reverse pigeon. I do not mind that I am getting this in twice as an opening and a closing sequence, because it is really important to keep that flexibility or at least an attempt towards flexibility going with any rigorous training program in the hills. From a reverse 4 on the right side, go ahead and take the right leg out long, take the left leg up into the armpit, and then make circle motions in the one direction and circle motions in the other direction. And then take that left and make a figure 4 with the thigh of the right, keeping the shin parallel towards the top of the room. You can use your elbow to open up that knee and then continue drawing that right in towards you. When you're done here, go ahead and give yourself a hug. I'm going to take us into a savasana. You should stay in the savasana as long as you want. I'm not going to hold us there that long because I do like to usually say a couple closing remarks in a seated position. So if you want to hang out in a savasana, you're more than welcome to. And if not, there's one more pose I want to hit. So take your knees up. Curl them in, and then exhale. Thank yourself for giving yourself some time to stretch out after this practice. Bring those ankles out wide in the mat. Wrists are wider than your shoulders. Lengthening your body as much as possible, dialing down your eyes, and committing once again to a few moments for yourself here on your mat. And then when you're ready, go ahead and curl up to one side. It doesn't really matter which. I'm going to do my right. Just take a moment to really enjoy the fact that you get to be in a fetal position right now because it's really fun sometimes. And then pushing up and inhaling into a seated position. Try to keep your eyes closed here. I'm just going to put us into one last asana for a moment. Take the right leg up if you can and cross it over so that it is knee to knee on top of the left. Find a little bit of length here. Breathe into the last of these sensations. And then you can just go ahead and switch that so the right side comes down, the left side comes up. Lengthening your spine once again. And then releasing, you can come into a seated position or anywhere else that feels good. Coming back to yourself for one more moment, thanking yourself for doing everything you can for your body to keep it healthy and happy a really long time and doing all the fun mountain things in the meantime. Also, thank you so much for joining me as always. I hope this little video was helpful. And I will see you on the mountain soon, hopefully. Take care.